Did you know that your morning routine, the innocent things you do within the first 60 seconds of waking up, could quietly triple your stroke risk after age 60? It sounds unbelievable, even shocking. But for millions of older adults across America, the danger is real, and it hides in plain sight. Welcome back to our Senior Brain Health series, where we combine decades of neurological research with practical wisdom to help you protect your mind, your memory, and your independence. Today's topic may be one of the most important we've ever discussed because the truth is simple. Strokes rarely strike without warning. The signals are there, the causes are there, and many of them begin right at sunrise, inside your bloodstream, your blood pressure, and your morning habits. And here's the part that surprises most people. The things you believe are harmless, comforting, or just part of getting older may actually be placing enormous stress on your aging arteries. In this episode, we'll uncover 7 morning habits that silently raise your stroke risk, and the final 2 may be the most overlooked dangers of all. Let's begin. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. Drinking coffee before water. If there is one morning habit I see in nearly every American household over the age of 60, it is this: waking up, heading straight to the kitchen, and reaching for the coffee pot before anything else. It feels harmless. It feels comforting. For many, it feels like the only way the day can begin. But as a brain doctor who has treated thousands of stroke cases across 4 decades, I can tell you without hesitation, this simple habit silently pushes your body toward the perfect conditions for a stroke. And it does so at the most vulnerable moment of your day, the first hour after waking. Let me explain why. When you wake up after 6 or 7 hours of sleep, your body is in a state of physiological dehydration. Even if you don't feel thirsty, even if your mouth isn't dry, your bloodstream has lost water overnight through breathing, sweating, and normal metabolic activity. This means your blood is thicker in the morning, not dangerously thick, but thick enough that it moves slightly slower, flows with more resistance, and places additional strain on aging blood vessels. Now imagine what happens when you pour caffeine directly onto that system. Caffeine is a stimulant that elevates your heart rate and triggers a sharp rise in blood pressure within minutes. That may not matter much when you're young, but after 60, when arteries stiffen and the inner lining of blood vessels becomes more fragile, this sudden spike can be dangerous. In fact, for some of my patients, that surge is enough to dislodge microscopic plaque that had been sitting quietly along the artery walls. When that fragment breaks loose and travels to the brain, it forms the type of blockage neurologists dread: a clot large enough to interrupt blood flow, but small enough to go unnoticed until the symptoms begin. I have seen patients experience transient ischemic attacks, mini strokes, within minutes of their morning coffee. Many of them had no idea that dehydration combined with caffeine created the exact environment in which strokes thrive. Here's the medical reality few people talk about. Dehydration increases blood viscosity. Thickened blood moves sluggishly through narrowed arteries. Caffeine increases blood pressure and vessel tension. The combination increases the risk that a clot will form, travel, or become lodged in the brain. And this is not theoretical. Study after study shows that stroke risk is naturally highest in the early morning hours. Your cortisol is rising. Your blood pressure is rising. Your vessels are rigid from overnight rest. Adding caffeine before restoring hydration is like striking a match near dry leaves. I remember a patient, a retired teacher from Ohio, 72 years old, healthy, active, walking daily. She drank 2 cups of coffee every morning before drinking a single sip of water. One morning, 15 minutes after her first cup, she felt her right hand go weak. She thought she'd slept on it wrong, but it wasn't her hand. It was her brain. A clot had traveled and temporarily blocked one of the small vessels controlling motor function. She survived, but it changed her life and her mornings forever. This is why I tell every senior who walks into my office, your brain does not want caffeine first, it wants water. A full glass, room temperature or warm, before anything else. That single act thins the blood, softens the vessel walls, increases circulation, and dramatically reduces the risk that a clot will form or travel in those first critical minutes of the day. And here's the part you must take seriously. You may not feel the danger. You may not feel anything at all. But strokes rarely announce themselves. They build quietly, silently, patiently. And this morning habit is one of the simplest ways to trigger the very event every senior fears most. Now, if drinking coffee before water is the first invisible risk, the second risk is even more surprising because it's something almost every older adult does without thinking, and it disrupts blood flow to the brain in a way most people have never been warned about. Let's talk about that next. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Now let's move on to point number 2. 2. Standing up too quickly after waking. As a brain doctor who has cared for older adults across the United States for decades, I've learned that some of the most dangerous moments for your brain happen in the first 30 seconds after your eyes open. It is a time most people never think twice about. But after age 60, this brief transition from lying down to standing can become a silent threat capable of triggering strokes, forming blood clots, and causing catastrophic drops in blood flow to the brain. When you've been lying flat for 6 to 8 hours, your heart has been working in a low pressure environment. Blood does not have to fight gravity to return to the heart. But the moment you sit up, and especially when you stand abruptly, your entire circulatory system is forced to shift gears instantly. In a younger body, this shift is easy. In an older body, it can be dangerous. As we age, our blood vessels lose elasticity. They no longer expand and contract efficiently to stabilize blood pressure. Many older adults also develop a condition called orthostatic hypotension, where blood pressure drops sharply when standing. You may feel a moment of dizziness, weakness, or blurring of vision. But what you may not realize is that during that drop, your brain receives significantly less oxygen. Even a short interruption in blood flow, 5 to 10 seconds, is enough to stress fragile arteries and disrupt the delicate balance inside the brain. And here's the part most people never hear. These rapid shifts in blood pressure can cause plaque inside the arteries to crack or detach. When plaque breaks, it forms blood clots, and those clots do not stay in one place. They travel upward, and when a clot reaches a narrow vessel inside the brain, it lodges there. It blocks blood flow, and it triggers strokes. I've had patients tell me stories that still haunt me. A 72-year-old woman in Ohio who stood up too fast to answer the phone and collapsed minutes later. A 68-year-old retired engineer in Arizona who rushed out of bed to use the bathroom and suffered a transient ischemic attack before he could even reach the sink. A 75-year-old veteran in Florida who thought he merely felt a little lightheaded, only to discover days later he had experienced a small stroke. All of them believed their mornings were normal. None realized that the act of standing up too quickly had set off a cascade inside the body: a sudden gravitational shift, a drop in pressure, a surge of hard effort, a moment of oxygen deprivation, and an environment in which a vulnerable blood vessel could fail without warning. The science behind this is clear. When an older adult stands abruptly, the heart must pump harder, faster, and against gravity. If blood is already thick from overnight dehydration, the surge becomes even more dangerous. Thick blood strains the heart, thick blood slows circulation, and thick blood makes clots easier to form and easier to lodge in the brain. This is why neurologists like myself caution older adults to treat their first movement of the day with the same respect they would give to their medications or their diet. This moment matters more than most people realize. Here is the safer method. When you wake up, pause, take a breath, bend your ankles up and down to awaken circulation, roll your shoulders. Sit up slowly and allow your blood pressure to adjust. Then, only after several seconds, place your feet on the floor and rise gently. This simple ritual, less than 20 seconds, can prevent the sudden vascular shock that so often leads to dizziness, fainting, or worse, a stroke that steals independence in an instant. But standing up too quickly is only one part of the hidden danger. Even if you rise safely, many older Americans unknowingly step into a second morning habit that quietly disrupts brain stability, disturbs blood flow, and places enormous strain on aging arteries. And this next habit is one nearly every senior in America practices daily, often believing it's harmless when, in truth, it may be far riskier than they ever imagined. 3. Skipping breakfast while taking morning medications. As a neurologist who has cared for thousands of older adults across the United States, I can say with complete honesty, one of the most dangerous habits I see in people over 60 is also one of the most common: taking your morning medications on an empty stomach and calling it discipline. Many seniors believe skipping breakfast helps control weight or keeps blood sugar steady. Others simply don't feel hungry in the morning and assume that's harmless. But medically, physiologically, and neurologically, this choice can be disastrous, especially when combined with the medications almost every older adult takes at dawn. To understand why, you must first understand how the aging brain relies on glucose. Unlike muscles, the brain cannot store energy. It needs a constant, stable stream of glucose delivered moment by moment. During the night, that supply becomes low. By the time you wake, your brain is already functioning on its minimal reserve. And that reserve becomes even more fragile when you add common medications into the equation. Many older adults in America start their morning with blood pressure pills, heart medications, thyroid supplements, or diabetes drugs. Several of these work by lowering or stabilizing numbers that can fall too low when the stomach is empty. For example, blood pressure medications can drop pressure even further when there's no food to buffer the effect. Diabetes medications can push glucose down sharply, leaving the brain underfed and vulnerable. Certain heart medications alter circulation, requiring proper metabolic support. When these medications interact with an empty stomach, the body enters a state of physiological stress. Blood pressure becomes unstable, glucose wavers, circulation slows, and slow circulation, especially in older blood vessels, increases the likelihood that a clot will form. Sticky platelets thrive in this environment. Blood that moves sluggishly tends to pool, especially in tiny cerebral vessels. And where blood pools, clots begin to develop. Once a clot forms, all it needs is a slight increase in heart pressure or an abrupt shift in blood flow, something as simple as standing up or coughing, to send it toward the brain. I have seen stroke cases that began exactly this way. An older adult wakes up, skips breakfast, takes their pills, drinks their coffee, and begins the morning believing they are making a healthy choice. But inside the body, their brain is starving while their medications are lowering key numbers even further. Suddenly, the heart pushes harder to compensate. A clot moves, it lodges, it triggers a stroke, and it happens without warning. The saddest part is that many of these strokes were preventable with something as small as a few bites of food. The purpose of breakfast for someone over 60 is not to fill the stomach. It is to stabilize blood chemistry so the medications you rely on can work safely. A small protein source, half an egg, a spoon of Greek yogurt, a few softened walnuts, provides enough energy to support both the heart and the brain. It steadies glucose, it smooths blood pressure, it keeps circulation moving instead of stagnating. Most importantly, it reduces the internal conditions under which blood clots form and travel. And yet, what concerns me even more is this. Many older Americans skip breakfast not only out of habit, but because of something far more dangerous, something they do immediately upon waking that silently raises their stress hormones and destabilizes their cardiovascular system before the day even begins. This next habit doesn't just weaken the body, it overwhelms the brain the moment you open your eyes. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 4. 4. Starting the day with stress and mental overload. As a neurologist who has spent most of my career treating older adults in American clinics, emergency rooms, and stroke units, I have learned that one of the most dangerous things a person over 60 can do is load the brain with stress the moment they wake up. Many seniors don't think twice about turning on the news before they even get out of bed, reading distressing headlines on their phones, worrying about bills, politics, or family issues before taking their first sip of water. It feels normal. It feels harmless. But inside the aging brain, this habit quietly pushes critical systems toward overload. Here is the truth most people never hear. When you open your eyes in the morning, your body is already in a state of heightened alert. Cortisol, the stress hormone, naturally surges at dawn to help your body wake up. Your blood pressure rises, your heart rate increases, your vessels tighten slightly. This is normal physiology. But for someone over 60, whose arteries may be stiff, whose heart may be tired, whose brain may already be vulnerable, this natural morning rise is a fragile moment, one that should be protected, not pressured. Now, imagine taking that vulnerable moment and adding fear, anxiety, and mental strain. You read about crime, you see financial news, you check troubling messages from overnight, you scroll through distressing updates about friends or family. All of this pours adrenaline into a system that is already operating at its morning peak. And here's where the danger becomes physical, not just emotional. Stress immediately increases blood pressure and heart workload. The combination of elevated morning cortisol and sudden emotional shock causes blood to circulate faster and more forcefully through aging vessels. If a piece of arterial plaque is loose, this surge can break it free. And once loose, it forms blood clots. It blocks arteries. it triggers strokes. I have treated older patients who told me, trembling in their hospital beds, "Doctor, I was just reading the news, and suddenly I felt something snap inside my head." Others felt a brief flash of dizziness, a numb hand, a word they couldn't form, but they ignored it, blaming stress. What they did not realize was that the emotional jolt created the perfect conditions for a clot to move. In the aging brain, emotional stress is not just a feeling, it is a vascular event. Morning stress also accelerates a condition we see far too often in older adults: platelet activation. When you experience sudden anxiety, platelets become stickier. Sticky platelets are the building blocks of clots, and clots formed in the first hour of the day are the most likely to travel because blood pressure is shifting rapidly and unpredictably. This is why so many strokes occur between 6 a.m. and noon, not because people are physically overexerting themselves, but because their brains are emotionally overloaded before their bodies are ready. But here is what every older adult in America needs to understand: you can reclaim this vulnerable window. You can protect your brain from morning instability. You can choose calm, silence, or gentle movement instead of fear and stimulation. Even 10 quiet minutes, breathing, stretching, sitting with warm light, can stabilize your blood vessels and prevent the dangerous cascade that stress unleashes. Yet, as destructive as morning stress is, it is still not the most deceptive danger in a senior's daily routine. Because there is another habit, one that feels peaceful, even comforting, that silently damages circulation far more than most people imagine. And this next habit is so common among older Americans that many don't realize it may be putting their brain at risk every single day. 5. Staying sedentary for the first hour of the morning. As a neurologist who has worked with older adults across the United States for more than 4 decades, I can tell you that one of the most deceptive dangers to the aging brain is not something dramatic, violent, or sudden. It is stillness, not peaceful stillness, but the kind that keeps your blood from moving when your body needs circulation the most. I have watched thousands of seniors begin their morning in exactly the same way: waking slowly, shuffling to the living room, settling into a recliner, turning on the morning news, and sitting for half an hour or more before taking their first real steps of the day. It feels gentle, it feels relaxing, it feels safe. But inside the aging body, especially after 60, this habit creates a quiet storm. When you sleep, your circulation slows, your heart rate decreases. Blood naturally pools in the legs because they remain motionless for hours. When you wake, your vessels are still adjusting, your pressure is still climbing, and your brain is still recalibrating after a night of reduced oxygen and hydration. At that moment, your body desperately needs movement: light, steady, intentional movement to reopen the vascular system. Instead, millions of older Americans sit completely still. And here is what happens when they do. Blood in the legs, already sluggish from hours of immobility, becomes even slower. The veins do not contract strongly enough to push it upward. In aging adults, valve function in the veins is often weakened. This creates the perfect conditions for stagnation. And stagnant blood is dangerous. When blood does not move, it begins to thicken. The platelets, the tiny cells responsible for forming clots, start sticking together. And once they stick, it forms blood clots. These clots often start in the legs, but they do not always stay there. A sudden change in posture, a rise in blood pressure, or even a deep breath can send them upward. When a clot leaves the legs, it becomes a traveler. When it reaches the brain, it triggers strokes. I have seen this tragic pattern in patient after patient. Good, responsible older adults who believed they were protecting themselves by taking it slow in the morning, not knowing that the lack of movement was placing them directly in harm's way. Many came to me after experiencing transient ischemic attacks, small strokes that served as warnings. Most occurred in the early hours of the day. When I asked them about their routine, the answer was almost always the same. I just sat for a bit before I started my day. But here is something every senior in America deserves to know. The first hour after waking is the most important hour for circulation. If you move even gently, march in place, stretch your arms, walk to the mailbox, you send blood upward. You prevent stagnation. You open the pathways that keep your brain nourished. You protect your vessels from sudden pressure spikes. And you reduce the risk of clot formation dramatically. This is not about exercise. This is not about sweating. This is not about forcing yourself into routines that feel uncomfortable. It is about telling your blood to wake up with you. Even 2 or 3 minutes of light movement can convert a dangerous morning into a safe one. I have watched patients transform their health simply by refusing to sit still in the first 30 to 60 minutes of the day. And yet, as damaging as morning stillness can be, it is not the only silent threat hiding in your routine. There is another habit, one that takes place in the most private room of the house, that many seniors never imagined could be tied to strokes, but it is one of the most common triggers I see in older adults. And this next habit, unfortunately, puts immediate pressure on your brain and vessels in a way that few people truly understand. 6. Straining in the bathroom due to morning constipation. As a neurologist who has cared for older adults across America for more than 40 years, I can tell you honestly, some of the most severe strokes I've treated did not begin with a fall, a stressful event, or a medical emergency. They began in the bathroom, often within minutes of waking, when an older adult strained too hard during a bowel movement. Constipation is incredibly common among seniors in the United States. It happens because of reduced physical activity, dehydration, side effects from blood pressure and pain medications, and changes in digestive motility that occur naturally with aging. Most people shrug it off as an inconvenience, but for someone over 60, constipation is far more than that. It becomes a cardiovascular and neurological risk that very few people talk about openly. When you strain, your body performs something called the Valsalva maneuver. This maneuver causes several dangerous shifts inside the body. Your chest pressure rises dramatically. Your blood vessels tighten sharply. Your heart is briefly forced to work against a closed airway. Blood pressure spikes upward, sometimes to levels high enough to rupture fragile vessels. For an older adult with stiff arteries or plaque buildup, these sudden spikes are not just uncomfortable, they are hazardous. I have watched blood pressure monitors jump 40, 60, even 80 points during moments of intense straining. This kind of pressure swings can snap off small pieces of arterial plaque. Once detached, that plaque becomes debris in the bloodstream, debris that forms blood clots as soon as platelets gather around it. And the next step is devastatingly predictable. That clot travels. If it lodges in a cerebral artery, it triggers strokes, often severe, often disabling. Many of my elderly patients never realized the connection. They blamed dizziness on dehydration, headaches on poor sleep, or weakness on medication side effects. But when I asked what happened immediately before their symptoms began, I often heard the same quiet confession. Doctor, I was straining on the toilet. harder than usual. This is not rare. In fact, bathroom related stroke events are so well documented in geriatric medicine that they appear in multiple clinical studies. The early morning hours, when blood pressure is already rising, when the body is dehydrated, and when the brain is most vulnerable, are the worst possible time to place additional strain on the cardiovascular system. Constipation itself also contributes to clot formation. When stool remains in the colon too long, the body pulls more water from it, leaving you even more dehydrated. Dehydration thickens your blood. Thick blood moves slowly and clots more easily. And when thickened blood meets a sudden pressure spike from straining, the outcome can be catastrophic. But here is the part I want every older American to hear clearly. This danger is preventable. If you hydrate before morning coffee, add fiber to your diet, take a brief walk after waking, and allow your body time to relax before attempting a bowel movement, you dramatically reduce your risks. A warm drink, gentle abdominal massage, or scheduled bathroom routine can help you avoid straining altogether. Your bathroom should never become a battleground. It should not require force, breath holding, or physical struggle. Those moments of effort can become moments of irreversible damage. Yet, despite how dangerous straining can be, there is another morning habit, one that doesn't involve physical force at all, that quietly places enormous stress on the aging brain. And this next habit is so ordinary, so deeply woven into American morning culture that most seniors have no idea it may be putting them at risk every single day. 7. Taking a hot shower too soon after waking. After more than 40 years caring for older adults across the United States, I have learned that some of the most dangerous habits are the ones people believe are harmless, even healthy. And one of the most overlooked dangers for seniors is stepping into a hot shower too soon after waking. For younger people, this is nothing more than a pleasant routine. But for someone over 60, this simple act can create a cascade of internal changes that dramatically increase the risk of stroke. Here is what most people never consider. When you first wake up, your cardiovascular system is already under strain. Cortisol rises sharply. Blood pressure climbs. Your heart begins shifting from sleep rhythm to daytime function. Your vessels, especially if you are older, are stiff and slow to respond. On top of that, your body is mildly dehydrated, making blood thicker and more prone to clotting. Now imagine stepping into a steaming hot shower during this fragile moment. Heat causes your blood vessels to dilate rapidly. For an older adult with hardening arteries, this dilation happens unevenly and unpredictably. Some vessels open and others do not. Pressure shifts suddenly inside the brain's circulation. The heart attempts to compensate, pumping harder to stabilize blood flow. But in seniors, many of whom live with underlying hypertension, diabetes, or vascular disease, this compensation is often incomplete or delayed. These rapid internal changes can cause a sudden drop in blood pressure, dizziness, or blackouts, reduced blood flow to the brain, destabilization of plaque inside the arteries. And when plaque becomes destabilized, the danger becomes immediate. Pieces of arterial plaque can break off under the stress of sudden vessel dilation. In seconds, those fragments attract platelets, the sticky particles in your blood, and it forms blood clots. Once a clot forms, it does not stay still. Your elevated morning blood pressure pushes it through your bloodstream until it reaches a vessel too narrow to pass through. When that happens, it triggers strokes, strokes that arrive without warning, without pain beforehand, without any chance to prepare. I have treated seniors who collapsed in the shower, convinced they had merely slipped, but the scans told a different story: a clot blocking a critical artery, a vessel ruptured under heat-induced pressure changes, a brain deprived of oxygen in the very room they believed was safe. The hot shower was not the cause of the stroke, but it was the moment that pushed a vulnerable system past its limit. When a senior moves from warm water to a cooler bathroom environment, the vessels constrict suddenly. This back and forth dilation and constriction is exhausting for an aging vascular system and increases the likelihood of clot movement. Even short lapses in blood flow cause brain tissue to suffer. But here is the reassuring truth: this risk is avoidable with simple timing. If an older adult waits 20 to 30 minutes after waking, hydrates, moves gently, and allows their cardiovascular system to stabilize, the body becomes far more prepared to handle the temperature shift of a warm shower. What feels like a small delay can be the difference between safety and catastrophe. Morning routines should never put your brain at risk. They should not create unnecessary strain or unpredictable shifts inside your vessels. The goal is to support your brain, not shock it. And while each individual habit may seem insignificant, the combined effect of these morning routines can quietly shape your stroke risk more than most people realize. Because the truth is this: your morning choices hold the power to either protect your brain or endanger it. Now, as we bring everything together, let me show you how these 7 habits connect and what every senior in America must do to guard their brain each morning. Final synthesis: your mornings are not routine, they are medical events. After decades of treating aging brains across the United States, I have come to believe something many people find surprising. The first hour of your day is one of the most medically important hours of your entire life. Most seniors think strokes happen because of one dramatic moment: an accident, a sudden spike in stress, or a major medical crisis. But what I have seen again and again is far quieter and far more unsettling. Strokes are built silently, piece by piece, through ordinary morning habits that seem harmless until the day they're not. Every one of the routines we've discussed — coffee before water, standing too quickly, skipping breakfast, emotional overload, morning stillness, straining in the bathroom, and hot showers taken too soon — creates a small shift inside your circulation. Alone, these shifts seem insignificant, but together they form a dangerous pattern that places enormous pressure on an aging vascular system. After 60, your arteries stiffen, your heart works harder, your blood thickens more easily. Oxygen needs increase while circulation slows. And your brain, which once tolerated small fluctuations without trouble, becomes vulnerable to even minor disturbances. This is why strokes in older adults appear sudden. They aren't sudden at all. They are the final step in a long chain of tiny daily events. I have sat beside families who could not understand how their loved one suffered a stroke out of the blue. Yet, when we gently retraced the morning routine, every clue was there: dehydration, strain, immobility, stress, or rapid vascular shifts. Moments that felt ordinary to them, but were medically dangerous. And here is the truth that every senior in America deserves to hear: your morning habits are either feeding clots or preventing them. They are either triggering strokes or shielding your brain from harm. But there is power in this realization. Unlike genetics, unlike aging itself, Morning habits are within your control. You can change them. You can correct them. You can protect yourself, not with expensive treatments or complicated programs, but with awareness and simple consistency. A glass of water upon waking, a slow rise from bed, a small breakfast with your medications, a quiet moment instead of stress, a few minutes of gentle movement, a relaxed, unforced bathroom routine, a delayed, warm, not hot shower. These small decisions, repeated daily, do something extraordinary. They stabilize blood pressure, thin the blood naturally, support the heart, and safeguard your brain's fragile vessels from the silent threats that build overnight. Stroke prevention is not just about what you do in emergencies. It's about the choices you make when everything seems normal. Your mornings are not routines. They are turning points. They are opportunities to give your brain the protection it deserves. They are moments where you choose life, independence, and longevity. And now that you understand the truth, the question becomes simple. How will you choose to begin tomorrow? These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.